All right, let's dive straight into a topic that's absolutely critical for every doctor: how to navigate your interactions with law enforcement. We're going to cover when you have to comply, and just as importantly, how to protect yourself, your practice, and your patient through it all. Okay, so first things first. Before you can even think about what to do, you need to be able to recognize when a medical case suddenly becomes a legal one. This is what we call a medical legal case, or an MLC. So, what exactly is an MLC? Well, think of it as any situation where your patient's condition has legal implications attached to it. It's that intersection of medicine and law that creates a duty for you, the doctor, to notify the police. But, and this is so important, that duty only kicks in after you've provided all the necessary emergency medical care. So, what does this actually look like in your clinic or your emergency room? What are the red flags? Well, the common scenarios you should immediately recognize as medical legal cases are things like assault, any kind of road traffic accident, poisoning, and of course, significant burns. You also need to be on high alert for cases involving sexual offenses, suicide attempts, any suspected criminal abortions, or really any time a patient arrives who is unidentified or unconscious. Before we go any further, I really want to be crystal clear on this one point. Your absolute number one responsibility is to your patient. Your duty is always clinical first. You provide immediate medical care. The paperwork, the reporting, all of that can and it must wait. Always, always treat first. Okay, now let's talk about your proactive duties. This is about those situations where the law doesn't wait for the police to find out. It actually requires you to be the one to contact them. That's right. In some very specific, clearly defined cases, reporting isn't optional. The law is completely unambiguous. You have a mandatory duty to inform law enforcement. It's not a choice. So, what are these non-negotiable categories? Well, the law is very clear. You have to report all road traffic accidents and all cases of poisoning. You also must report any significant burns, especially if you suspect things like acid attacks or domestic violence. And this duty also extends to all cases of sexual assault, any suspected criminal abortions, any unidentified patient, and of course, any death that happens under suspicious circumstances. Now, when you do make that report, you have to remember this golden rule. You are the medical expert, you are not the legal expert. Your job is to report the objective medical facts. What are the injuries? What is the patient's condition? You have to avoid speculating on why it happened or offering any kind of legal opinion. That is not your role. So that's what to do when you have to initiate contact. But what happens when the police come to you? Let's walk through the right protocol for handling their requests both professionally and, of course, legally. You need to follow this four-step protocol every single time. First, verify who they are. Get the officer's name, their rank, and their station. Second, and this is a big one, never act on a verbal request. Always, always insist on a formal written one. Third, check their legal authority. The request should have some basis, like an FIR number. And finally, step 4, always keep a copy for your own records. This is absolutely non-negotiable. It is so important to understand where the legal boundaries are here. Yes, the police can request the MLC report, an injury certificate, and records that are directly relevant to the case, but they cannot demand a patient's entire unrelated medical history. They cannot interfere with your treatment decisions, and they cannot, absolutely not, force you to certify facts that you did not personally see or observe. This brings us to a fundamental pillar of medical ethics, something that guides every single interaction we have: patient confidentiality. Your default position has to be protecting your patient's privacy, period. You can only break this confidentiality under a few very specific circumstances. If it's a confirmed MLC, if you have that valid written police request we talked about, if there's a direct court order, or if a specific law requires you to disclose it. If none of those apply, you simply do not share. The principle here is what we call minimal disclosure. Even when you are legally required to share information, you provide only what is explicitly asked for and legally mandated, nothing more. This approach protects your patients, and it also shields you from legal trouble down the road. All right, our final section, and this covers what is probably the most critical element for your own protection: your documentation. You have to think of it as your legal shield. So let me just ask you this directly. When you are in the middle of a complex medical legal situation, what is the single greatest tool you have to protect yourself from liability? The answer is your documentation. Make no mistake about it, if a case ever goes to court, your records will be the primary piece of evidence. A clear, detailed, and timely documentation trail is the best possible proof that you acted lawfully and ethically every single step of the way.
So what does this mean in practice? It means that every single time you interact with the police, you have to create a specific note in the patient's file. And that note needs to include the date and time, the officer's full details, the reason for their visit, and a copy of their written request attached. You should also add a quick summary of what information you provided, and then sign it, and ideally have a witness like a nurse sign it too.
Okay, let's bring it all together with the key takeaways. Just remember these 5 core principles. 1. Treat first, document next. 2. Notify the police when the law requires you to. 3. Otherwise, maintain strict confidentiality. 4. Provide only factual, objective medical information. And number 5, document every single interaction meticulously. Your MedLawyer, protecting doctors, empowering patients.